It's 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning and welcome on in. This is Colatown, our city, our stories, and I welcome you in on this Monday, May the 4th, 2026. My name is Kevin Cohen. Thank you for being with us each and every Monday. We love this program. We love connecting you to all the different things going on in the community and in our city. All right, so first guest up today, we're so excited to welcome back to the point our friend Peter Brown, the Columbia Councilman, who joins us to hang out and talk a little bit about how things are going. Councilman Peter Brown in the house. Peter, it's great to see you again.
Great to be here.
I
A lot of good stuff going on.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you coming on
Yes,
in. Thank
sir.
you. How you been?
Great. Really good.
Let's do a little bit of, for folks that don't know you, even though, like I said, you've been on the station with us a number of times, let's do a little bit of introduction, a little bit about you. You've started your second term on council. What did you learn first time around, and talk about where your district and or who you represent and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I represent District 4 in Columbia, which is from Forest Hills all the way out to Leesburg Road. So we got the biggest geographic district in Columbia, really diverse. And I think that's really good because it gives you such a different perspective on everybody. So it's really, and plus I also feel like I represent District 4, but I represent all of Columbia.
Sure.
So,
I think that's a good way to look at it. I think
Yeah.
all council members need to obviously recognize, even if you run into somebody on the street who has a problem and they're not in your district, you still want to try to help.
100%.
Yeah, you still want to try
we're
to
in
help.
public service, and that's really what it's about. But it's also about messaging. It's not about marketing, but it's about messaging what's going on in Columbia, where we're headed, why we're doing what we're doing. You know, how do we improve quality of life issues for everybody?
Sure. One thing I always try to find out from someone, you've been given the responsibility and the blessing of getting a second term, and I always try to ask someone, what did you learn in the first term that you did not expect? What did you learn that you had no idea you were getting yourself into?
I think what I learned is that Columbia was really ready to take the next step, and I was thinking that wasn't the case, but I think the vibe in Columbia was more palpable than I thought. I thought that maybe we were going to have to take everybody kicking and screaming, but I really don't think that's the case. I think we were ready. We just needed to kind of coalesce behind a movement, and the movement is to how do we evolve and how do we stretch Columbia? How do we become what we were? I don't want to say destined to be, but it feels that way a little bit some days. How do we become that formulation of everything that is good about Columbia, every reason that we're here, and how do we expand that, and how do we just make it better?
Well, obviously I've been doing this show for a lot of years, radio in Columbia for almost 32 years. And I will tell you, there's been for a long time an inferiority complex, if you would, with the growth
Totally
of
agree.
Greenville or with what Charleston has and things like that. And I always felt like the first thing we need to overcome is nothing against those other great cities, but we need to start focusing on how great Columbia is, not on what they're doing over there or what they're doing down there. We need to focus on who we are, because I've used this program since we launched Colatown, Peter, to remind folks we have so much right under our nose that people don't even realize we have in the capital city. And we are the capital city.
We are the capital city.
Yeah, and so in a state of South Carolina that is the fastest growing state in America,
I know.
We're getting an average of 28 people a day. Mayor Rickman was telling me we average about 28 people a day coming to the Midlands. And I mean, it's growing at a huge rate, which, again, you want growth, but you also want responsible growth. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm the guy that wants us to get more vertical. I'm the guy that wants us. I want growth. I'm not afraid of it at all. I'm excited about having people come here and bragging. I mean, I've recruited so many family members that have moved here and friends that have moved here from other parts of the country. And once they get here, they see the way the people treat each other and how laid back we are and how nice we are to each other here and what a community is. I'll start with Soda City. We go down to Soda City. My wife and I go on a regular basis. We didn't go Saturday because the weather was kind of yuck, but we went last Saturday. And it's like you will go down there and you feel like there's this energy, all the different smells of different foods being cooked, international flavor, it's like a melting pot of people. And then, Peter, you also realize it's still as big as it's gotten, not so big that you still can't run into 3 or 4 or 5 friends you know. So that's what I love about Columbia.
I think that's what I love about it too is, and over time, if if I would have gone to Soda City a decade ago, I'd have known everybody there. But now I don't, and that's
Right.
good.
Right.
Okay, so when I used to travel a lot, I'd be at the Atlanta airport, and I know 12 people on a flight.
Right.
Now I might know one or two. So Columbia's getting there.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was, you call it low self-esteem. I used to say it's kind of like a hangover. It's like we had a hangover that we're not worthy of certain things. And we talk about, our claim to fame is we're close to everything. Well, that's no claim to fame.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is our claim to fame is we're the capital city.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be the best Columbia we can be, and we're doing it. And a lot of it is, the promoting of Columbia. I think the mayor's done an amazing job of selling Columbia.
Yeah.
So we're selling Columbia to people that were never going to buy it in the past. Well, they're buying it now.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're buying it hard, and
Yeah.
it works.
I love that. Now instead of saying we're close to everything, I just say everything's close to us.
Yeah, right. We're doing it.
Yeah, they're close to us.
And I still get people that are little, well, I don't know if we can pull this off. I was like, well, we are pulling it off. And they're like, well, I know, but I said, no, we are. And then they say,
happening.
well, but I said, no, seriously, we are.
It's
happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. It's not gonna happen. It's happening.
And it's time flies very quickly. I realize that. It was just a short while back when we were just talking about, do we want to reinvest in Finley Park? Do we see that as a viable thing? Can we keep what happened the first time from happening again to it? Can we do this? Can we do that? Is it worth the money? That kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden it gets done, and the community gets behind it, and then the commitment is made, and the construction begins, and boom, now we've got the park, and it is glorious.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought up Finley Park. I think that's such a great example of the doubts that we have about ourselves as a community. And one of the things that we really are pushing is, how do we invest in ourselves? How do we invest in our own community? How do we invest in our quality of life issues? Finley Park is not a $25 million cost. It's a $25 million investment into our community. And it's not just a standalone park. It's going to transform or help transform downtown. And that's what really we got to understand, is by investing in Finley Park, now you're going to open it up for people to live around the park. And that opens it up for people to live downtown. That opens it up for people to connect to the Vista. And how do we get people downtown living like every other place in the world? And how do you kind of get this, primary, secondary, and tertiary investment in your community that brings jobs, that brings investments in restaurants, coffee shops? How do you get people to live in the areas that they work and play?
Sure.
That's where we're headed.
That is where we're headed. And again, we'll talk more about that after our break, but I really do think that it almost, we needed that signature moment of reopening Finley Park in order to get there. So hold tight. We'll do a break. We're going to come back. Councilman Peter Brown is our guest as we are leading off our Colatown, and we're having a good time doing so. This is The Point. Stick around. Thank you so much for listening in on Colatown. Welcome back to our program, Our City, Our Stories. Love talking about the city and all the different things going on. We get some wonderful guests, dynamic people, and people who have kind of a finger on the pulse of what's going on. One of those individuals is our Councilman Peter Brown, who's here with us from now until about 9:30. And again, thank you for coming on in and hanging out with me this morning. I really appreciate it. And it's good to have you back here, Peter. We left it at Finley Park for a little bit, and I wanted to touch on it one more moment before we moved on to a couple other things. But I think about the park, and I was telling you off air that I took Lainey, my wife, for the first time. I've been there a bunch of times since it opened back in November, but took Lainey for the first time last week, and she was so, because she grew up here, and so she saw the Finley Park that we had, and we we used to come down for the concerts on Saturday nights, and we'd set up the blankets and the chairs and let the kids run all around, and we'd have a big picnic, and then we'd watch the music. And then slowly but surely we started to get uncomfortable with what was going on there, and it started to just be unsafe, and we didn't feel good about it, like everybody else. And so that was basically the end of Finley Park for us and for so many others. And so I think the city obviously learned from that situation. I went specifically out of my way to point out that there's marshals there, that there's 24-hour rangers there, if you would, that are making sure that the same thing doesn't happen again, and that it stays clean and it stays comfortable for moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas to bring their kids.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe we were a little ahead of our time the first go round with Finley Park. I think as Columbia grows up, I think you learn how it works, and the easy part about the investment in Finley Park was we really had no choice. You just can't let it.
Sure.
You can't let it sit there, with tumbleweeds blowing around.
Right.
So I think the easy decision was to reinvent Finley Park. The hard part is keeping it fresh, and I think we've got our mind right now, as my dad would have said. So we got our mind right. What our responsibility is. How do you do it? But also, how do you leverage Finley Park for other things in the area? Mm-hmm. Columbia, for a long time, was always a destination from one place to another.
Right. Right.
So we're gonna go to Finley Park and we're gonna hang out, but then we're gonna drive our 5 miles back home. Yeah. Well, we want people living around Finley Park, and we want people living downtown. Sure. We want people living in the Vista, and we want people to not think about everything in Columbia as a destination, but maybe a walkable destination more than anything. So I think it's the timing of Finley Park couldn't possibly be better for Columbia. And I think what you're seeing is when you look at the economic development, how much multifamily and student housing is going on, the vibe around Columbia, the growth around Columbia, but also just the buy-in. Sure. It really is. It takes buy-in. And I think you're seeing, just like you're talking about Finley Park, I think people wanted to be skeptical of it. I think they convinced themselves they could be skeptical of it, but now, all right, we're running out of things to say other than it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
It's amazing.
It really is.
If
you haven't been down there,
that's the word. Yeah. That's the word you hear is it's amazing.
Yeah, if you have not taken your family down there yet, whether it's for the concerts, and we're going to talk more about the Jazz Fest coming up on the 15th and 16th with Mark Rapp when he comes in next segment. But I'm telling you, you can go down there for a picnic. You can go down there for one of the shows. You can go down there and let your kids go roller skating or play pickleball or whatever it is that you want to do. There's something for every age.
For everybody. I was going to say the same thing. There's
so
something
true,
for everybody. It's totally great.
Peter, it's so true. That's one of the strengths of Finley Park is that there is something for everyone, whether you want to go down the hills or play in the playground or, again, roller skate or whatever it is. There's all kinds of events going on there, things like that.
But I was going to say it's really such a great tie-in to again, we like to bifurcate things when we talk about it, and we like to think about economic development and quality of life as two different issues. Well, they're not different issues. Everything's related to each other. And so when we talk about economic development brings in the property taxes so we can reinvest in our communities, and that's where we're at.
Sure.
And this is a pro-green city council and city staff. I mean, so we're looking at more and more of ability to kind of bring in green spaces throughout the community, so we can just have.
That's what the people want.
I know, and number one rule in politics. This is not a political
agenda.
Give the people what they want.
And we what we want and what we're trying to accomplish, and this is something I've talked to you about, something I've talked to the mayor about, something I've talked to Sam Johnson about, in just since we started Colatown. Connectivity. Huge word.
Totally agree. Yes.
Huge word.
Huge.
Being able to go from A to B to C to D. Right. And, we talk about, assembly and what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be seeing some changes on assembly.
Yeah.
And we've already seen changes in 5 points and how to try to make that a little bit safer to get across. And you're going to see more of that with assembly.
And you're going to see more people being in 5 points. You're going to see people move. You'll see developments. The transformation of 5 points is underway. You might not be able to see it right now, but it's coming.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's an exciting time because I really do feel like all the goals that we have for the city is obviously we want to bring people in. one of the things that the mayor talks to me about all the time is we don't want people coming in and then driving back the next day to whatever they come for an event. We want them to stay for a weekend. We want them to come in and spend the whole weekend, not just for a football weekend, but for other things, whether it's conventions or this or that. So there's that aspect. The one area that all cities across America are dealing with, this is not unique to just Columbia, but I'm sure it's what you guys run into most in terms of, is the homelessness. Yeah. That's the one area where we're still trying to figure out the path, and you still have a lot of not in my backyard folks that don't want to get this. Mayor tells me that one of his biggest frustrations is there's a lot of services and a lot of opportunity available to help the homeless, but you can't seem to get everybody who's doing it on the same page.
It's 100% true, but it's also been designed around not solving the homelessness crisis. It's been designed around perpetuating the crisis. So yeah, it's nice when we say we're going to have meals, but that doesn't give anybody a home. So what we're doing is we're actually keeping people on the street because the services are fragmented, but they're also not designed around solving the problem.
Band-Aids.
If you want to say, are we solving homelessness or are we keeping it
at bay?
And I think everybody's got tremendous good intentions in Columbia. I just think they're misguided at some level. I feel like this is the energy around this is it's the time.
Sure.
So I feel better now than I have, that this is our time where we can put the things in place as a city, and I think the city needs to take the lead. We are going to take the lead. We are taking the lead, and we're going to have to own it.
Sure.
And it's easy to say, well, what does that mean? Well, in a lot of cases, what it means is we're going to have to coalesce people around the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the problem is homelessness.
Right.
The problem isn't from 8 to 5. The problem is from 5 to 8.
Yeah, it absolutely
That's
is.
the problem.
Absolutely it is. Well, I want to focus also, while I've got you here, on some of the newer things that are coming our way that maybe we're not all that familiar with. I know that, for example, we are trying to get more hotels to get built here and things like that. We're trying to create more full-service hotels is something that is necessary. What are some of the things that are goals that we want to do?
Well, I think besides that and that's happening too. I think the real key is in my mind, we talked about connectivity, and the biggest impediment to connectivity has always been parking lots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Columbia might be the parking lot capital of the world. I don't know. I mean, and maybe that's because we don't have people living in the places that they are entertainment areas. So I think by promoting people to live downtown, we've got multiple really, really good projects already underway, multiple really amazing projects coming. I think you've got some real quality of life projects as well that tie into people living, playing, and working in the areas.
And what's interesting is the dynamic and the demographic of those that we're trying to get here. Because if you look at some other cities that have been very successful moving people back downtown, there's two groups. It's the retirees and it's the young people.
100%. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And if you look at the demographic just on Bull Street, it's 25 to 30 and 55 to 60.
Right.
Those are the people that have traditionally not had a place in Columbia.
Right.
And if you look at Charlotte, I got to be honest with you, I had Panthers tickets way long time back in the day. Charlotte didn't have a whole lot of people living in Charlotte.
Right. Right.
I mean, they really didn't. And some of this is momentum, but some of it is just being open to new things.
Sure.
So I think we've got both. I think we're open to what we want Columbia to look like. I tell people that I think Columbia could look like a mini Nashville 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I always say we want to be Nashville without the problems, but we're not going to be as big as Nashville.
No.
That's fine. We don't want to be.
No.
So we're not trying to be Greenville. We're not trying to be Charleston. We're just trying to be the best Columbia we can be.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot to work with.
Yeah. No kidding.
And again, I think the fun thing for me is when I have people who are here. It's kind of like the person, Peter, that grows up in New York City and says, I've never been to the Statue of Liberty, or I've never been to the Empire State Building.
That's true.
That's kind of, and I have a lot of people that I know that have lived there that have said that.
Yeah.
And I always remind folks when they say the same things about Columbia. Well, have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? Well, no, I've been here all my life, but I've never gone to this. I've never done that.
I've never been to the zoo. That kind of
True.
stuff.
There's some
It's
truth
like,
to that.
really?
And I'm like, instead of saying, oh, there's nothing to do in Columbia, I said, let me show you 3 or 4 websites. Obviously, we look at Experience Columbia and all these other different websites, but there's so many different things that I'm not buying it anymore. I'm no longer willing to accept that you can't find something to do. We just had the Food and Wine Festival last week, and that was phenomenally well attended and extremely popular and a great cultural event. But there's great museums here, and we obviously have the parks. There's over 60 different parks in the city of Columbia. So I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that there's not something for you to do. If you want to find something, you can find something if you're looking. But I'm totally excited. Agree. I'm really excited about where we're at with where we are and where we're going to be. And I'm glad you guys got what you're thinking about, like a 10-year vision. I think that's important.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's really key, is to have a sustainable model of how and some of this is growth, but some of it is management too.
Sure.
And you got to have the right management in place to keep it rolling.
Well, we've got great culture in our city. You just got to take a look at it. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is the Jazz Fest, which is coming up. I'm so glad you came in. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
And thank you for what you're doing for our city and for our community.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go. Peter Brown joining us here, our councilman. We'll take a break. We'll get you some news. Then we're coming right back. Mark Rapp going to join us. We'll talk about what's coming up with Jazz Fest on Colatown.